Alright, so I've been seeing this forever, and I started to talk about it. Ignore the Christmas crap in the background. Man, I really need to work on that. Yeah, I haven't put up anything. The console argument. Usually, um, graphics are put out, and I'm going to be talking about that first, and if I think of anything else, I'll probably discuss that. But, the hypocrisies with the Sony fan base, the fanboys, the people that have never played PlayStation before the PS3, those idiots. Um, they don't understand shit. And there's same thing with Xbox fanboys who, they talk about their 360 and they don't even think about the original Xbox. They don't think about, if they played PS1 or PS2. They don't think about back then or the graphics because they only think about now. And I can't stand that. I can't understand that mentality because you have to go to the past to understand the future. That's just a fact. That's what other companies do before they make a system. Most of the time, they think about what was in the past, what was on their last game system, what was on the last generation of consoles, what can they do to improve upon that, so on and so forth. And with PS3 is a great example. The PS1 was a mix between 2D and 3D graphics, and a lot of the time the mix didn't work well. It was muggy, it was kind of awkward, and you know, play a game. All right, a great example, and I love this game, even though it looked like shit when I played it, and it probably looks worse now when you think about it. Are the Rugrats games on PS1? I know you're playing as toddlers, but I don't give a fuck. I love those games. It was like, okay, there were two games. One was like, they're in like Hollywood and they're like going through a bunch of actor studios and it's basically a bunch of mini games. So there's like a Mario Kart level. There's a bunch of golfing stages, which I love the golfing stages. There are platform levels, other weird shit. The graphics were mediocre for the time, like lots of like ugly polygons and triangles and awkward angles. And people don't think about that when they say like PS3 is the best like thing ever. Sony has always had like the best graphics. No, no. The N64 was arguably a lot better looking, even though it didn't have enough space to have a lot of the games PS1 did. Um, it could push better polygons, a lot smoother textures if the developer worked hard at it, so on and so forth. The limitations of both consoles. PS1 had the limitation of graphically, and then Nintendo 64's limitations were the space in the cartridge. Um, and people know that, and Sony fanboys just choose to ignore that because they're like, well, you gotta think of it now, like PS3. It's like you could also argue that PC is way better looking than PS3 or Xbox 360, which is true, depending on your specs, so on and so forth. I personally try not to think about graphics because I don't give a shit. I've talked about it, I still love that Rugrats game, and it looks like crap by today's standards. But I care about the gameplay, it's kind of buggy. The gameplay is pretty slow, but I like it. I need to get those games again. Um, Xbox. There's still fanboys occasionally, and I talked to one probably a couple months back, and he made the most retarded statement. 90% of multi-flats for PS3 and Xbox look better on Xbox. That's a pretty bold ass fucking statement. Um, the main differences that I've heard and seen in ports from Xbox 360 and PC to PS3 are um, usually lighting effects, water effects, uh, a couple of digital effects mostly, just common textures and things like that. I mean, it's the same with like common games like Call of Duty and Bethesda games, which I don't understand. The port of Oblivion was okay. They took an extra year just to develop that. And now, like, just for Skyrim, they didn't bother to take the time to freaking develop the port. Everything I heard about that game and everything I saw was terrible. I mean, it still got decent reviews and people are still praising the shit out of fucking Skyrim. I hate Oblivion, so I said fuck you to Skyrim. I just hate the first person action role playing game. It just I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I like different RPGs instead of those. I don't know. Whatever. But those Oblivion looked like crap for the time, and people say, well, I don't care, it freaking plays well. That's the point. There's other games like that for... Okay, here's another one, and people are gonna hate me, but I don't give a fuck. Halo 3 looked like shit at the time. You can argue all you want. Compare it to, like, PC games at the time. Compare it to PS2 games at the time. Running on, like, maxed out PS2 visuals, gameplay, all that. It just doesn't look well. The guns look weird. The character models look kind of strange, and the AI was just dumbed down from the second game. I know this because I played the second game and I got my ass kicked. I could play Halo 3 and not ever get killed. The fuck, really? Really? I understand they're like trying to go back to the first game where... Okay, they still had in the second game where, the enemy types react to the character in certain ways. That's fine and all, but why make it them even like more basic in the third game than in the second? When the second game was like arguably like the best in the series in terms of like both gameplay and story and just bigger in scale than the first game. And the third, from what I've heard, I didn't finish the third game, but it's supposed to be a shorter campaign than the second game. That seems kind of odd. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So that's one game where people were like on the graphics train, which made no fucking sense. And there are other games like that where people say like graphics are freaking amazing. Fable 2, really? Fable 2? It's an art style. It's not graphics. There's a huge difference. And you could argue that for like the Rugrats games and Halo, but Halo was actually supposed to be like running on like a good engine for the 360, and I could argue it looked worse than Gears of War 1. And that game came out a year before. So that seems kind of retarded to me. And like I said, you can argue it if you want. I don't really care. I played Gears of War 1. It looked better than Halo 3 to me, personally. Other games. I don't know. I just don't understand it. Graphics. Holy crap, graphics. God of War 3. People are still talking about that. Like, people use that as an argument, like why PS3 fanboys like totally are wrong or suck. But I don't really remember them ever using God of War 3 as an example, and even if they did, it looked great for the time, and to me it still looks fine today. But why would anyone use that against like a game today or versus any PC game? It doesn't make sense. It seems kind of stupid. I mean, it's God of War, and those games have always like pushed the limits of the system and everything, with the exception of the HD collections, of course. I mean, it pushes the console to limits, but not the game itself. It doesn't push it to the ultimate graphics best quality. It pushes it at the time that they think the system can be utilized to. And that's the same with a lot of systems. It's the same with PC. At least from what I've seen and what I understand and what people tell me, it's what you have, it's what cards you have, what's integrated into the system. So if you have like an average computer, you'll be able to put the graphics and the sound and all the settings to that specific computer, the way you want it to be. With a PS3 or Xbox or whatever, it's limited to those specifications. It seems pretty obvious, and but you know, people ignore this shit. Like it's like you can't say that. It's illegal on the internet, which I find to be retarded. But yeah, I forgot I was gonna continue about the Xbox versus PS3 multi-plats. There are some examples where the ports besides Skyrim absolutely sucked ass. Bayonetta, which I've heard they improved it, so it looks, you know, the frame rate's not as clippy, and it looks fairly close to the 360 version after all the updates and shit. I just wish, again, like Skyrim, they could have taken like an extra 6 months to a year to freaking haul ass and fix that shit. Just like try and make it look nice. Try and make it presentable. And I heard there were even glitches on the 360 and PC version still. And not graphical problems, but retarded glitches. And really, you're like this top-notch studio that everyone says is like the best fucking game company ever. That and BioWare, even though they totally fucked them up with the ending of Mass Effect 3. I know they improved it, but not. I don't know. I just gave up on Mass Effect. I didn't like the gameplay after the second game. It just. I liked the first game a little, but that's just me. So yeah, that's another example. Bayonetta. Other games. Dishonored. As I said, water effects slightly different. I think the water was more clear. It was supposed to be dirty, which was shown in the 360 version, and the PC version, I think, looked a little bit crisper. And it had a different way of, you know, how to play it, because it's a PC game, and they actually made it in the style of a PC game for the PC port, which I think is great for fans of PC gaming. That was a great idea. I try not to talk about PC gaming because I don't do PC gaming. I know plenty of people who do, and they tell me, and I interpret my thoughts on it in a way I can without insulting PC fans or fanboys, because a lot of them overreact. But I don't know. You guys, you people, you're getting a lot of stuff now, and you're trying to make it like you're the best ever. I don't see how you can say that when you still didn't get a lot of stuff until this generation. And even now, you don't get credit for a lot of things this generation. It's not right, but you shouldn't like go overboard and go get off on it, get angry about it. Shit happens. Some people don't have respect, especially, you know, the Game Awards shows and people on television. And, you know, I'm sorry, but I will say this: you are getting a lot of nice multi-plats from consoles now. Dark Souls, that came, and now there's going to be a Dark Souls 2 that is also coming to PC when that releases, which is awesome. And you got a lot of extra content. I heard there were a few glitches on it to begin with. That kind of sucks, but you know, that's kind of to be expected when the company isn't used to making computers directly for the PC system. But that's just what I read through a couple of websites, so you know, could be wrong. And that's for you to see for yourself. I'm not going to say it's fact or not because that's just what I read, and that's what happens. So, I don't know. I just hate when people don't understand the past. Um, I mean, another example is PS2, or when compared to the Xbox multiplats, again, kind of similar with the Xbox 360 and PS3. But it was in the opposite. The Xbox was more powerful than the PS2, so it made sense why the ports suffered on PS2. Um, the console was more limited, so sometimes the games would have less areas from the port, the Xbox or whatever, depending on which system the game was made on first. And the graphics would be dumbed down, or there would be frame rate drops and stuff like that. So, there's always going to be a problem with the system, no matter what it is. With the Wii, it's that it can be hacked easily. The memory for it sucks. It was graphically underpowered. Even if it was intentional, it seems kind of odd that they didn't have any intention to cater to a normal audience. They mostly just wanted to cater towards the casual audience, and that ended up biting them in the ass. You could argue that there's like 90 million people that bought it, but in all honesty, probably only a ninth of those people actually played the system for real games and didn't buy it just to use it for Wii Fitness or Wii Sports or something else. I know plenty of people, adults, young adults, and kids that just wanted it to frickin' get fit and to lose weight. Don't tell me I'm lying. Don't tell me I'm full of shit. That's what happened. That's what people did. And with the Wii U, I originally thought it would be the same, but it's not as much of a gimmick as the original Wii. So I think the Wii U may have a chance in the normal market, but they had to push it. And the launch to me looked anemic. Besides ports that looked nicer and ran slower in some cases, some ran as high speed or better than some of their other console counterparts. But I don't know. I just want great games for the system that aren't Mario or ZombiU. I don't know. ZombiU is a nice premise, but I'm not really interested in zombie games that much right now. And that's another thing. Arguments about graphical capability for the Wii U. Some people are claiming that Nintendo fanboys are using the graphical argument now. That, holy shit, the Wii U is more powerful than PS3 and 360, and I'm more of a Nintendo guy, I'm going to get that. And then, they compare it to their PS3 and 360, and they're like, dude, it's that thing looks like shit, your PS3. Like, get rid of it. There's no point in having it. That seems kind of, I don't want to use a word that I don't understand, so I'm not going to really use any terminology, but it just seems kind of off. Like, you're really going to say that graphics are at the be-all, end-all. PC users occasionally use that to say that their system is much better, when, in general, they don't have a lot of the games that consoles do. I just don't see the point in the arguments. What games you have, and whether or not it's fun, it should be the main factor in all this. And that's kind of disappointing that with the consoles ever rising in terms of graphics and what they look like, whether or not it looks realistic or cartoony or just a great art style like it's painted or watercolor or pastel or some like awesome art style, or whether or not it's going to be realistic, that's going to be what people look at. I mean, it's nice to have, and I like seeing and I like what I see, but I just want it to be fun. I want to feel the game. I want to be in it. Uh, I mean, that's another thing about games, the role-playing genre. When you think about it, all games should be like that. Role play. You're that's what game's about. Gameplay. You're going to be interacting with the environment in the game, in whatever game that is. Racing, role playing, shooter. And it usually has a story. Even some racing games have stories where you're going to be taking the role of an unknown person, or you're in the vehicle and you're driving it, and you have a certain goal. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I've been in this playing games too long, since I was like 8. Um, so about 13 or so years. Um, I don't know. I just grew up with games looking different. I mean, I even played Atari games on PS1 because back then, even then, there were games from older consoles on next generation systems. People say HD remakes are this new thing that, reviewing them now is different than it was then. People didn't review them then because people didn't care about them. People didn't buy them. People only saw them for like cheap, like $20 games and hardly ever bought them. I was one of the few people who did buy them, and I loved them, and I didn't care that they were old games because they were just games. They were fun. Nowadays, people want to belittle them. It's like, well, it's an older game. It doesn't look as good as this game, as its sequel or its cousin, a game that plays similar to it. I don't think nitpicking it is very fair because it's still the same game. If it looks ugly and it doesn't look anything like the original game, then I can see it. Like Silent Hill HD, I heard that game looked horrible, and they honestly should have taken another year to develop that game. And they delayed it for 6 months, which makes me wonder, what the fuck were they doing the whole time? I don't know. I just kind of wish gaming would go back. Well, even then there was still arguments about which console was better, but I wish people would have a mutual respect for what games they played and what systems they had. Kind of. But anyways, this has just been my thoughts on games today.